We are going into the world of chess blunders. Even the greatest minds in chess can make the occasional mistake, as we'll discover through the remarkable journey of none other than Magnus Carlsen, the 5-time world chess champion. While Carlsen is known for his exceptional strategic skills and calculations on the chessboard, he has also experienced moments of vulnerability where he too has fallen victim to blunders. In the first game, Magnus Carlsen is playing white against Hikaru Nakamura in the Speed Chess Championship Finals. Nakamura, who is generally known to be a good player of blitz chess, is already leading with 5 points, while Magnus is trailing at 2 points. Magnus has a solid position with 1 extra pawn on the queen side and all his pieces playing around that area. However, there was only a knight protecting his king. At first glance, Magnus' king seems safe, and he believes so too, playing queen to b5 when Nakamura's knight attacked Magnus' queen on b4. However, this turns out to be a big blunder. With less than 30 seconds on the clock, Magnus missed a checkmating trick. The reaction from Nakamura is understandable. He can't believe his luck that the 5-time world champion has missed such a checkmate tactic. Even the commentators couldn't believe what they were seeing on the board. Let's pause the video and find out what the 5-time world champion missed. You have found out correctly. He missed knight to f4 check. Now white has 2 options, capturing the knight or taking the king to the last row. If white captures the knight, black can play queen to g4 and force the king to the first row, and black's rook will give a check on c1 to finish the game. If white plays king to f1, the rook can go to c1 and finish the game. If white goes king to g1, a similar check will do for black. Magnus played king to h1, and Nakamura delivered the final blow by playing queen to h3, threatening queen to g2 checkmate. Upon seeing the unavoidable checkmate, Magnus Carlsen resigned. In the next game, Magnus plays black against Vahap Sanal in the World Blitz Championship. White opens with e4, and Magnus decides to go with the modern defense. Both players opt for standard piece development in the initial moves, and quickly castle their kings before move 10. White seems to have a good start with his piece activity, while Magnus also has his pieces well placed on the board after the first 10 moves. After a few more moves, Magnus offers a knight trade on g5, and when white agrees to trade the g5 knight, Magnus has to take with e6 knight to avoid a bad pawn structure. However, Magnus Carlsen completely misses white's d5 knight attacking the c7 pawn, and the 5-time world champion blunders his pawn, immediately showing his displeasure at missing that move. Magnus can't believe it. After blundering his pawn, with the game having a very close pawn structure, Magnus decides to go for an attacking variation. Magnus sacrifices his bishop on h3 to attack white's kingside. With white having less time on the clock, Magnus decides to complicate the game further. These are the tricks one can learn from these super grandmasters. However, in the game, Magnus Carlsen proves his experience and plays exceptionally well to make a comeback and eventually wins the game after a few moves in the ending. This victory proves the need to be agile in terms of your playing style. It shows that even in difficult situations, a skilled player can find creative solutions and turn the game in their favor. Now let's move on to another intriguing game. Magnus Carlsen is playing against Ian Nepomniachtchi in the semifinals of the World Fischer Random Chess Championship 2022. Carlsen is playing the best of 4 semifinal after winning the first game. In the second game, Magnus Carlsen is playing white and seems to have a better position with his pieces being very active. His center pawns look dangerous, and black's king doesn't seem safe at first glance. In this position, black gives a check on h6, and Magnus responds by using his rook to d2 to block the check. Upon seeing this move, the commentators seem very surprised. Now, let's pause the video and try to find out what the 5-time world champion missed. Have you found the move? Magnus missed bishop to e5. Since his rook is pinned, Magnus cannot capture the e5 bishop, as it would lead to the queen picking off the d2 rook with the support of the rook at d8. Ian plays bishop to e5, and Magnus realizes his mistake. You can see the disappointment on his face. Despite having 5 minutes on the clock, he missed this move. This shows that even the best players can make mistakes in chess. In the next game, Magnus Carlsen is playing black against the current world champion Ding Lijin from China. These 2 top players are competing in the final 4 of the Magnus Carlsen Invitational event. We are coming close to an endgame, and Magnus seems to have a material advantage as he has a rook for Lijin's knight. However, Magnus' king isn't safe, and there is a good chance Lijin can attack Magnus' kingside at any time. In this scenario, Magnus played a normal move on the queen side, completely missing Ding Lijin's queen to e3 move, which attacks the h6 pawn with the help of the f6 knight. With all of Black's main resources focused on the queen side, there is no way the 5-time world champion can get support for his king side. Magnus Carlsen realizes his blunder, and you can see the emotions he displays on camera for missing the checkmating idea. He raises his arms in the air, completely devastated, and resigns the game. The irony is that Carlsen took 5 minutes to make this blunder. This once again proves that chess is a mind game, and it's okay to make mistakes. In the next game, Magnus plays white against Nakamura in the Chessable Masters Champions Chess Tour. Magnus is in a queen endgame with a passed pawn on e6 and is pressing for a win. However, while attempting to take the pawn on b6 using his queen, Magnus experiences a mouse slip and blunders his queen by playing it to f6. Although Magnus can console himself for this blunder, considering it was a mouse slip, a loss is still a loss. In the upcoming game, Magnus Carlsen, playing as white, will face off against his arch-rival Hikaru Nakamura in the Speed Chess Championship. The game appeared to have reached a balanced middle game position with a slight edge for Carlsen due to his active center pawn structure and piece development. Nakamura made a move, advancing his knight to h5 and attacking Carlsen's bishop on f4. Magnus could have easily taken his bishop to e3, securing a favorable position. However, in a momentary lapse of concentration, Magnus played his bishop to c7, leaving it within the reach of Nakamura's knight on a6. Both Nakamura and Carlsen, along with the commentators, were astonished by what just came on the board. Carlsen, realizing his blunder, resigned the game. In the second last game, Magnus Carlsen will be facing off against Jordan van Forest in the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. In this thrilling battle, Jordan launched an attack on Magnus' rook at a1 with his bishop. Magnus calmly relocated his rook to a2, unaware of the threat from the long diagonal bishop on g8. As realization dawned on Magnus, he couldn't help but break into a smile. The commentators, just like Magnus himself, were taken aback by the unexpected turn of events. In the final game of the Air Things Masters Champions Chess Tour, Magnus Carlsen finds himself playing as Black against Daniil Dubov. Both players are fully involved in the game, displaying intense concentration as they have less than a minute on the clock. Despite being ahead with an extra knight and a pawn, Carlsen's Black King appears somewhat vulnerable. In this situation, Magnus makes a composed move, placing his queen on e7. White responds by playing queen to d4, to which Magnus counters with king to g5. Dubov makes an important move, attacking the knight with his f3 pawn. Suddenly, Magnus feels the mounting pressure and thinks deeply to find an escape route. He decides to play f5, and Dubov captures the knight. Magnus then moves his rook to c8 in an attempt to activate it. However, in the midst of it all, Magnus overlooks the checkmate and 2 moves with queen to f4 followed by queen to f5. This oversight ultimately led to Carlsen's elimination from the tournament. In the game of chess, blunders serve as a humbling reminder that anybody can make mistakes, regardless of their skill level or experience.